Hello guys, in this video I'm going to talk about Betaflight. I'm going to take you through Betaflight and explain to you simply what it does, so that when you look at the Betaflight screen and then you understand all the different tabs and what they are there for and what you should be looking for when you do a setup. So I hope by the end of the video you'll be able to easily understand what Betaflight is, and then you have overcome your fear of Betaflight. So before I start talking about Betaflight, I need to take you through the physical quad so that you understand what makes up the components of the quad and what Betaflight does. So let us now look at a brush Quadcopter. So this is a brush micro. You can see that this brush micro has a flight control board, and then it has 4 motors, and of course it has propellers. The motors are connected to the board. With the ESC for the brush motors is built into the flight control board, and because it's not as powerful as a brushless ones, I think that's why it doesn't need to have a separate ESC, electronic speed controller, because it doesn't need extra power, or it doesn't need more processing to keep this moving. That's how I understand what ESC is. But apart from that, just remember that you have a flight control board and you have these motors connected to the flight control board, and with this board you have the built-in receiver. And with other board you may not have a built-in receiver. You have a receiver that's connected by using plugs or soldering. So this is the physical quad of a brush micro. So now let us look at a brushless micro. So with this quad you also have the flight control board that's attached to your quad, and then you have this electronic speed controller ESC where the motors is connected, and then in turns the ESC is connected to the flight control board. And this receiver is not built in, so it's connected through this port here. So, and then you also have these LED lights at the back, and also this one you have the camera at the front. So this is a component of a brushless micro. So this is how the physical quad looks like. So to help you understand the components of a brushless quad, I will show you a schematic drawings, which is this one, so that to break it down it's much easier for you to understand what the components are. So as you can see in this diagram, you can see the flight control board, and you have these motors connected to the flight control board, and you have the camera, video transmitter, and also you have this receiver, and also the battery here, the buzzer, and this is the LED lights. So this schematic diagram is very similar to what we have with this quad. So you can see that the flight control board has power attached to that, the motors attached through ESC to the board, and then you have the camera, you have the VTX connected to the board, and also you have the receiver connected to the board. And in order to control all this, you need a software for the flight control board, and that software is Betaflight. So that's why you need Betaflight to be loaded to your flight control board, and it has to be configured before all these components work together. So whether you have a brushless or a brushed quadcopter, you need flight control board to control the motors and to read the information that you receive, the quad receive from a transmitter through a receiver, either it's built in or being attached to there. And with a brushless one, it's the motors are connected in a more complicated fashion because it needs a ESC. But with the camera, they are very similar. If this one has a camera, they're connected to the flight control board to get power. So basically, the flight control board controls the movement of the quad and all the features that come with the flight control board. So the flight control board needs a software to control everything that's attached to the flight control board, and also then the software is required to control the movement of the quad, whether it's brush or brushless. So before I take you through the Betaflight screen on your PC, I need to go through the basics for you to understand the screen itself and also the configurator. So let me repeat what I said earlier. So you have all these components attached to the flight control board, and the flight control board is required to move, to spin all the motors, and the motors have to be spun in a certain way for it to go left, right, forward, backward, and spin around. And also, the board has to read information from the receiver when it takes this information from the transmitter. So the information has to be transmitted through a connection on the board itself. So the board has to recognize that. And the board also has to recognize what the transmitter transmits to the receiver, and then the transmitter receiver's signal then has to be converted to certain movement for the quad through the control of the spinning of the motors. So the board has to recognize this connection, and also if it has LED, it has to recognize this LED connection and also buzzer. So you can see that the flight control board needs to do all these things, so it needs a software to understand everything, like a brain that's processing the information. So the flight control board is basically like a microprocessor in a microcomputer. So it needs a software like, for example, like Windows or Mac operating system to control it. So it also has certain processing power, and it also contains many features on the flight control board. So now I'm going to take you through another diagram. So let me now take you through this diagram that I have drawn up. So I'm going to explain to you what it means, and then I will tell you why I have done it this way. So Say this is the flight control board. You have the receiver attached to the flight control board, and you have the motors attached to the flight control board through the ESC. And then you have to have a transmitter that then talks to the receiver, and then that transmitter signal gets transmitted into the flight control board, and the flight control board then controls the flight through certain flight modes that's already pre-programmed, and that you have to activate. So the flight control board usually needs a certain setup. For example, you need to calibrate the accelerometer, then you need to be able to restore, backup, or reset the flight control board. So it's like the main control, like a switch that you can restore, backup, reset. And also because you have an accelerometer, you need to be able to reset that. So it's called calibration. So the next thing that the control board needs is to be able to be configured. It needs to be given information to activate all the functions that it has built into the flight control board. So it needs a configuration or configurator. So in the flight control board, you have things like you need to tell the flight control board what type of quad it is. Say for example, it's an X shape, H shape, or whatever. So it needs to be able to know where the front is and the back is, so that's board orientation. So it needs to know what type of receiver you have connected to the flight control board. It also has a processing speed, so you can connect the ESC with motors to the flight control board. It needs to understand what type of motors, what type of ESC. The accelerometer can also be trimmed. Then it has certain battery voltage sensor, current sensor, and it has all these other features which I'm not going to go into them. For example, it has GPS and things like that. So that applies to different quads. So now you have a basic switch on and off, and that basic switch on and off will then be able to reset all this if necessary. So the next thing to do is you need to be able to tell or to activate or to give instructions of how all this works together. Then of course you have the motors connected, so you need to know what sort of motors, what sort of electronic flight speed controller. Then you have the receiver ports, and also you have different ports here that you can connect other things to the flight control board. So the receiver basically reads information, takes information from the transmitter, and the flight control board has built-in certain mode because the quad doesn't move itself. The quad will have certain pre-programmed function to spin the motors to move it in certain way. So it has some kind of modes. So for example, acro, horizon, or angle. So this has to be activated, and the flight has to be controlled somehow. How it responds, left, right, forward, backward, and spinning, and that is determined by the P.I.Ds of the Betaflight configurator. So let me quickly let you look at the screen as a summary. So you have a setup, you have configuration, you have motor. Also the fail-safe is here to make sure that your quad doesn't fly away in case of loss of transmitter signals. So you have ports, you have receiver, modes, P.I.Ds. So these are basically the tabs on Betaflight that you need to look at when you look at the Betaflight screen. So this is done to make you easily understand what the Betaflight screen means, so that you can go through each step and then you know what they do, how they operate, and how you configure them. So the next part of this video is I'm going to take you through the Betaflight screen, and then hopefully you will understand by the end of this video what Betaflight is about, and you will not fear Betaflight anymore. Okay guys, now let me take you through the Betaflight configurator. So when you connect your quad to your PC or Mac, you open up Betaflight, then you can see the welcome screen. With the welcome screen, if this is the first time you have installed Betaflight, then you can read the documentation and support, and this is the firmware flasher. I'm not going to take you through the firmware flasher in this video. I will do it in my other videos which are coming up. And you have this welcome screen, and if you haven't installed the drivers are here, and these are all the subject of other videos. So what you do is, if you have your right drivers connector, you will be able to connect to Betaflight. Now let me connect. So on the screen itself now, you can see on the left hand side the setup, and the next one is the ports, and following that you can see configuration. The next one down you can see failsafe. The next one is the P.I.D, and after that you can see receiver, and all these colored indicator on this receiver shows you if your transmitter is connected, whether they are moving correctly, and also this one, the different channel mapping that you have with the transmitter. So the next thing that you can see is the modes, and our next one you can see is the motors. So I'm only going to take you through the most important tabs, which are all these, so that you will understand Betaflight much easier. So let me go back to the top one, the setup. Like I said earlier, you can see that you can be used to calibrate an accelerometer. You can reset the settings, you can do backup, you can restore. So just consider this as your overriding functions that you can use to basically reset your configurator so that you can do it again, or you can back up and then you can restore. The next thing to do that you can see is the ports. Why this is important? Because the ports identify what sort of components that you attach to the ports. So for the first one, you have the USB. So the USB is here. So you understand that USB is connected to this USB port, and then with this quad, the receiver is connected to UART2, and then it's a serial base because this is FreeSky, is S-Bus. So this is activator. So now the flight control board understands that you have the UART2 connected using a serial receiver. So the next screen I'm going to take you through is the configuration, which is here in my diagram. The configuration will tell you different features of the flight control board. The first thing that you can see is this one, where they call it the mixer. With this one you can have many different types of quad, because the reason why you have this here is because the motors are pre-programmed to work certain way if you have certain quad attached to it. So that's why it is called a mixer, because the configurator, or rather the software, has already mixed the different speed or different direction that how your motors will move if for certain type of quad. And then the other thing that you can see on the right hand side is the ESC or motor features. This will tell the flight control board what type of motors that you are connected to the flight control board. In this case, this is a brush one, so you need to choose brush. In other cases, you have brushless, you have this different type of speed controller, so you need to choose the relevant one. And under here, you can see that it will have certain functions for the motors. So for example, you want the motor stop, don't spin the motors when armed. This is instructions that you are given to the flight control board and the configurator, and disarm the motors when regardless of throttle value. Then you have this system configuration. This is basically how fast the flight control board is processing the information for the gyro, for the P.I.D. Then in this part of this screen you have the receiver, so you're telling the flight control board that this is an S-bus. You can have PPM, PWM. The S-bus also includes Spectrum, which is DSM. Then you have to choose which one. So in this case it's S-bus. RSSI shows the signal strength between the quad connection to your transmitter. Then you have all these other features you have here. Then you have battery voltage, current sensor. And so this is what I show you on this screen. The failsafe is basically tells the flight control board how it reacts when it lost signal. So in this case, the failsafe is for it to drop. So this P.I.D tuning is basically control the flight, how the flight behaves when you move your seats. I'll talk about that later. Then this receiver shows that if it is bound properly, that it is then connected to the transmitter, and the transmitter has a proper mapping so that it can now read the signals from the transmitter to the receiver, and it will be transmitted to the flight control board. The modes are, you can tell it how to arm the motors, and also you can set out the angle or horizon. These are all pre-programmed in the flight control board, so you need switches on your transmitter to activate them. And this is where you can recalibrate your motors. With brush you don't have to do it, but with brushless you can do it. So you can see that with my diagram you can easily understand what the Betaflight configurator does. So the Betaflight configurator is basically a software to recognize all the connection that you have on the flight control board and how they should be functioning when it is working and when there's a transmitter transmitting signals. The P.I.D is basically controls the flight characteristic of the quadcopter. So let me recap. So the flight control board basically helps you to set up your configurator so that you understand what it needs to do, what type of quad it is, that if the board is facing the correct way, what type of motors is connected, so it needs to know that, and how they can be calibrated. Also, it needs to know how to function when there's fail-safe, so it also needs to understand what sort of ports are open and what sort of ports are connected, and it needs to understand the type of receiver, and it also needs to understand when the modes are supposed to be activated, and also when you move the sticks, how the flight should be controlled using the P.I.D values. So I've tried to attempt to explain not the Betaflight configurator to you very simply, so that you understand the screen much easier, so that you can go through the Betaflight configurator, not fearing it, because you know what they control and what you should do and what you should be looking at. So I hope you guys like this video. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more videos. So until next time, cheers.